everyone, and welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm back, finally, after a month-long, I think it was 6 weeks. I will tell you that I do that in October because the town meeting is in October, and there's a lot of preparation, and there's just so much to do. And then after town meeting, I have to get over town meeting. So this is my first time back in a long time. I want to thank you for tuning in. Ken and I want to give a shout out to Tracy Volkswagen in Hyannis. Great salespeople, great service department, and the greatest car detail center on the Cape. Okay, let's welcome some great underwriters. Stoll's Cafe in Manamet, Evolution Salon, Brewster PC Solutions with Wrestling Brewster, attorneys Trifletti and Costa on Long Pond Road, and of course, David and Kevin Gallerani, owners of Cape Auto Body and Service, locations at Samoset and Sandwich Streets right here in Plymouth. Now, I've been looking forward to this show, and our wonderful Plymouth Harbor is featured on tonight's program. Talk of the Town has 2 guests that oversee the harbor, and they both make sure everything runs smoothly and safely. Please welcome, from the Department of Marine and Environmental Affairs, Plymouth Harbormaster Chad Hunter and Nate Cristofori, our Natural Resource Warden.
That's it.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
I am thrilled that you're here.
Thank you.
And a lot of people knew that you were coming on, and they were looking forward to it. And of course, you were in the paper, so a lot of people knew that too. But I want to start off with you, Chad. And by the way, these 2 fellows have a wonderful sense of humor. Chad, give us some of your background, education, family, and when were you hired as Plymouth Harbormaster?
Sure. Well, I've lived in Plymouth all my life, come from a long line of hunters and homes here in Plymouth. I live here right now currently with my family as well, so Plymouth is home to me. Come from a commercial fishing background. My grandfather was a commercial fisherman. My father grew up on South Park Ave downtown, and he grew up on that pier and was also a fisherman at a very young age, and ended up working for Captain John, which is where I started as a very little kid. First just going on the whale watches and then eventually working there. So I have a great history with Plymouth and the harbor itself. So my education background, if you sort of fast forward, I graduated from Plymouth South High School, attended Curry College, and got my bachelor's in criminal justice. And actually the first season when I graduated high school, the first summer that I had off, I applied for the Plymouth Harbormaster's office and was hired by then Ralph Savory, the Harbormaster. So that was my first experience. I had always seen the Harbormasters operating, being an employee for Captain John boats, but that first summer, that was really learning the trade. From there, being a young kid, I was able to go to a police academy and a Harbormaster academy, I was in the 3rd Harbormaster Academy that was held in the state of Massachusetts.
Where is that, Chad? Where is the Harbormaster Academy?
When I went to the academy, half of it was at Mass Maritime, so they taught all the maritime component there, which perfect facility, perfect instructors.
Wonderful place.
So we did half of the course there, and then the other half of the course was at the police academy, and at that time I believe it was Pembroke.
That's fabulous. I love that. I didn't realize, of course there would be a Harbormaster Academy.
Well, that was, before that there were only 2 academies prior, so it was sort of a new idea, but I just happened to take that at that time. There was no state requirement for that. Fast forward to 2009, they did actually pass legislation which required that training to become a Harbormaster and Assistant Harbormaster. So
excellent.
I was able to apply that from years ago.
Sure.
Started with the town as a full-time Assistant Harbormaster in 2006. Was the assistant up until 2009. and then became Harbormaster November 2009 till current.
I remember when you were appointed,
Yeah.
hired, yeah, when you came into the selectmen's, and you said, "Oh, and he's handsome too."
Thank you.
Nate, tell us your background.
Sure. So same as Chad, I grew up in Plymouth, graduated from Plymouth North in 2003. I went to school, I went to Westfield State College, which is a university now, but have bachelor's degrees in criminal justice, geography and regional planning, and environmental science. When I was in college, I kind of got my foot in the door by working seasonally with the town out at Long Beach doing the piping plover protection. Oh,
That's where I saw
okay.
you.
I was out there, yeah, I was out there for 10 years.
A lot.
Yeah, so I was out there quite a bit.
Oh, move my microphone. I'm not, you know,
Okay.
keep talking.
So yeah, I was seasonal out at the beach for 10 years. I got hired full-time in this position, Natural Resource Warden, last August, a year ago, this past August. Brand new position. Prior to this job, I was environmental scientist down the Cape for about 2 years. So that's kind of where my environmental background came from. We went through the 1401 Reserve Intermittent Police Academy that started September 25th last year. That took us through about February of 2014. So starting around March this year is when I actually started kind of getting out and kind of beginning the job. So.
You look 20 years old.
Thank you.
You've done all this and you look like a baby. I'm so impressed with you. You know, and why criminal justice? I know why, but tell us the criminal justice part.
Well, at the time, obviously having that, after I graduated high school, having that summer to sort of think about the major, and at the time, being a young kid, 18, 19 years old, working for a Harbormaster department, seemed like a great idea, although with the understanding that the positions are very limited. I mean, there's not a ton of Harbormasters or assistant Harbormasters that make a living doing that job. It's pretty much your coastal communities, and in every community there may be 1, 2, 3 positions, and you don't see a ton of turnover generally in those positions. So
exactly,
I kind of went with criminal justice because it sort of fit with the Harbormaster and some of the training that I had been through, but then there was thoughts of becoming a police officer or environmental police officer.
So respectful. Yeah, that's wonderful. You too, Nate.
Right, yeah, kind of building on what Chad said, it was sort of the same thing when I was working out the beach. That sort of discipline of work sort of guided me towards maybe doing environmental law enforcement, but it was similar to Chad. It's such a kind of a niche line of work. Very few communities have their own natural resource officer, natural resource warden. There's maybe 5 towns down the Cape, and then in Plymouth. So there's very few until you get to the state level or the federal level. But having that criminal justice background to build upon was sort of the base, and then to attach environmental science on top of that was sort of where it kind of bridged the gap between law enforcement and science.
Yes, and I know how that would be needed, unfortunately. But and you do work closely with the chief of police.
Correct. Yeah, chief of police, fire.
Mike Batarian and Ed Bradley, fire, the chiefs. They're wonderful, aren't they? They're coming on in December. I haven't had them on in a while, so they'll be coming on in December. But what is your role? What are your roles, and what do you oversee?
Start with
huge question.
Yeah.
But you don't have to get into specifics because I have the specifics.
Okay, I get that question quite a bit because Harbormaster, it is very unique. If you don't own your own boat and have a mooring, generally the general public really doesn't know what a Harbormaster is, and a lot of the tourists as well, because Harbormaster doesn't really, in other states around the country, completely different roles. In some places they don't exist at all.
They think you're just search and rescue?
Yeah, they'll sort of say, well, you guys like the lifeguards or
Oh,
environmental police. I mean, they're trying to relate to what they know at home. So I get that question quite a bit. What is a harbormaster? That's the question of the day, and my mind starts to spin because there's so much to the job. But
So much.
really, it's a historical job. Meaning this position probably existed, when they were offloading freight. And generally, the job of a harbormaster was to make sure the vessels go where they're supposed to go, collecting any fees or dues that would be payable when they do offload goods. So it does have quite a bit of history.
Who was our first harbormaster?
I do not know that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
no.
I wouldn't have asked the question. I wouldn't have asked you. But I'm going to find out because that's interesting.
Yeah, and one of the things I've always wanted to do, but there's so much daily activity that I've been unable to take the time to really research it. But it'd be really great to see, going back how far. Plymouth had quite a maritime industry with cordage and the coal wharfs and really all these piers that don't exist anymore in Plymouth Harbor. But I would tend to think that it would go quite a ways back.
I'm going to look that up. And this is our first warden.
Yeah, his history, I guess, isn't
Much shorter.
lengthy.
Somebody 300 years from now will ask, who was the first natural resource warden?
Right.
And there you are. Your picture is right there. And you oversee a huge area, both of you. I mean, the responsibility is awesome. And do you have enough people? Or is it just the both of you? What do you do? I know you have some people. I see them in the shack down at the wharf.
So we have 4 full-time staff, including myself, and we have part-time and seasonal employees. Right now, we still do have a lot of commercial traffic, lobstermen, draggers, scallopers, but there's not nearly the volume as you have in July and August. So what we do is we expand. There's probably about 20 personnel on in the months of June, July, August, and then really once kids go back to school in September, things slow down pretty quickly. So we're able to scale that back and end up with like the 4 full-time guys through the winter and a couple of part-time people as well.
Now, is it true that pleasure boats have to be out of the water insurance-wise November 1st, by November 1st?
Yes, a lot of people, some people know that, others do not. But
well, my husband was an appraiser, and he knew that. He mainly did cars, but he did the boats too.
Yeah, so November 1st, a lot of people's insurance run out unless they extend it.
They can extend it?
They can, yeah.
Oh. And you oversee what we love to do all summer, and that's shellfish.
Yeah, well, so the difference, there's kind of a considerable difference between Chad and I. Chad's doing a lot of the harbor and saltwater, and I mainly stick to the upland parts of the town. So I'm actually in what we call just the natural resources division, where he's the harbormaster division. I'm basically in our own separate kind of category. So we work together quite a bit when it comes to shellfishing or like some of the topics we'll get into later. We work very closely, but primarily what I deal with are the conservation areas in town. We have I think it's somewhere around 6,000 acres of conservation land in town.
Yep.
So on top of like I said, we'll get into it. I'll look at doing just the conservation management, whether that means running a chainsaw all day and clearing trails, to dealing with illegal dumping, and then kind of changing gears over when it comes to the spring when the herring start to run, and doing a lot more of the data collection to submit to the state about how many herring have run. And then on top of that, always looking out and doing the law enforcement stuff that we have to do. So.
When we first moved here, there was a sign by the little bridge on Water Street that said, "Do not molest the fish." And my kids got the biggest kick out of it. "Mama, what does that mean?" And I don't know. I'm not quite sure. But you know, after a while, after a few years went by, they took down that sign, and but it got its point across, I guess. But the herring were, when we first moved here, was such a sight to see, to watch them, you know, come in Jenny Grist Mill and come up. Are they still as active?
There's been a decline in past years, which has resulted in there being a moratorium put on the fish.
Right.
So there's no possession allowed of river herring
Yeah,
throughout
but
the
they're
state.
bony. Have you ever had one of those?
Eaten one?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, years ago, years ago, the boniest fish, you can't eat it. I mean, it's bony.
Right. Well, a lot of people, what they would do is they'd take them and live line them and actually use them for bait to catch bigger fish.
Oh.
So that's where a lot of people were taking them for. But because the numbers declined so much, there was a moratorium on it, so you can't possess, and then that'll allow the numbers to hopefully get
Who
back
knew?
up further.
You know, and I say this, and I know you know it. We have one of the prettiest harbors around.
Thank you.
You know,
We do.
We do.
We do.
And we have miles and miles of coastline. Not enough beach, but that's another topic. And we'll be showing some photos as we go along. But first, Chad, I understand you can speak to the kayak incident and the shark. I had the Parker girl on, and with her friend, the two that were in the boat. Lovely girls. And tell us about it.
Well, this is a story, again, I never would have thought I would be dealing with something like this. And every time, I've told this story time and time again over the last few months. And every time I tell the story, it doesn't seem real to me.
Incredible.
And lucky enough for me, I happened to be working that day and took the call. But it really started out as just a normal call for us. It was September 3rd, 5:55 p.m. We got a report of 2 kayakers in distress. That is a call that we deal with on a routine basis. People capsize. They can't get back into the boat. The boat fills with water. We deal with it. I would say on an average, good summer weekend, there's probably 5 to 10 of those in a weekend.
Hence, I am not in a kayak.
Yeah, and usually they just sort of get in over their head.
Yeah.
They think it's a short paddle, and
Yeah. No.
sometimes it's calm, and then the wind picks up later in
Yep.
the afternoon, and it's really choppy and boat traffic. So when we got the call, this is sort of a routine kayakers in distress. We were sort of in the middle of shift change. 6 o'clock is kind of when guys leave and come
you
on.
think things are calming down.
Right. Well, and that's the other part. So, I figure we get into September, and I'm like,
Yeah.
now we can breathe a little here.
Relax.
And
Oh, sure.
so, a busy day, but we're handling business. And then this call comes in. Myself, Ross Quintal, and Jimmy Burke got on to our Marine Unit 2. So we're leaving from the office. We had a 15-minute transit time to get down
They
there.
said that you got there fast.
We did. We got there as fast as the boat would take us.
Yeah.
And luckily with the tide, it was high, so we were able to cut over a lot of the flats and cut our
Good.
response time from probably, if we had to go around, if it was low tide, it probably would have been 25 minutes. So we were able to cut it down to 15. I'm sure for them, it felt like an eternity, no doubt. But we got on scene about 15 minutes later. Plymouth Fire had actually launched a boat from Whitehorse Beach,
Yep.
a small boat.
They were right on it.
Yep, so we ended up pulling up on scene at the same time. And there were the 2 ladies, Ida Parker and Cristofori, sort of holding onto their kayaks in the water. And then there was another gentleman, Tom Davies, who
God love him.
yeah, really did an outstanding job. I don't know if anybody knew what they were getting into that day, but he definitely brought some calm to them in that time of need. So the one thing that when we got on scene, You know, for us, it's sort of training takes, you know, we start to work off our training and these sort of routine calls that we deal with, and it's always people before, you know, property.
Oh, sure.
So, all right, let's get these people out of the water. One thing we notice when we pull alongside, and these girls they're frantic, and
Terrified.
I can't understand what they're saying, but you know, it's something you'll never forget. The sort of screams and cries that you won't forget that stuff. And so it seemed odd why they would be so upset. You know, for us, it's like, well, kayak capsized, you're in the water. That's okay.
So
We'll get you out of the water.
Told you.
No, and the only thing, about halfway there when we were responding, we did get an update from 911, the police dispatch, that there may be something in the water around them. But, you know, there's seals in the area. There's, you know, there's really so many other explanations as to, you know, at that time, what we thought that might be. So when we ended up getting them out of the water, and, you know, they're still hysterical. We get them into the cabin of the boat, start to try and calm them down. Then we start to recover. So everybody's out of the water now. We start to recover the kayaks.
Oh,
And so we pull the first one up, get it into the boat. That's fine. Bring the second one up, and I was actually I pulled the kayak up the side of the boat, and I went to push it down to get the water out of the kayak before we brought it all the way in. And sure enough, right in front of me when I pushed this kayak down, there's a bite mark.
A chunk.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, I didn't know at the time, white shark or not, but I mean, it was a 13 to 15 inch bite mark.
Oy. That could have been Ida's leg.
Right, about as perfect as can be. And, you know, I don't know if it was Ida or Kristen at that point, literally like lunged out of the cabin and was like looking at the bottom of the kayak, because that was sort of the first time that they were able to get a good look at it as well. And that's when sort of the reality hit everybody. You know, I
And
just,
then where
it was
is
unbelievable.
it? Where did it go?
Right, and you know, we're at that point. You're looking around because you're, you know, wondering if it's still in the area. The first thing we did once we saw that, I asked Tom. I'm like, "Do you have a life jacket?" Because for me, you know, some people are like, "No, I'll paddle home," but you know, I'm basically looking at a kayak that was attacked by a great white, and I have this other gentleman sitting in the same spot in his kayak.
Right.
So I didn't feel comfortable with leaving him there.
No.
And it's funny, sort of going back to my training, it's like, do you have a life jacket on board? And he said no. So I'm like, you're coming with us.
Yeah, simplest question.
No questions.
Yeah. He didn't have time to, you know, he just jumped right in. And
Yeah, and I'm not sure when, you know, he obviously heard the cries, but I don't know if he knew, you know, what was going on when he got out to them, or I'm sure he might have heard the word shark come out of their mouths a couple times, but I'll give him, you know, the utmost credit and respect for staying there with them until we got there.
should be applauded.
Absolutely.
Publicly.
Yep. So again, we sort of get everybody back to the White Horse Beach boat ramp. They had the ambulance waiting. It's amazing to me that there's not even a nick on any of those girls. It really is amazing. I mean, where the shark hit the kayak is basically where your legs would be in the cockpit of the kayak.
Right.
And to think that, you know, it's just so close. I mean, it is such a close call. It's amazing.
Almost you know, I hate to say it, but almost because he turned around and looked at, was it Kristen?
Kristen's kayak got hit by the shark.
He turned and looked back. I mean, that's terrifying, but it's almost like a religious experience because, and from that they became interested in sharks and going to do a few good things. From what I understand, they really have a great attitude. So your day, where were you?
I was
just
off.
picking out your shells?
I was off that day.
Chopping down a tree.
Whoa, chopping a tree.
Well, the sort of what's unique about this, nobody thought we would be dealing with this. Although it's funny, the sort of the history of the area. But if I can rewind that day. So before this happened, there was a report from another lady kayaking earlier that day of what she thought was a shark chasing or taking a seal. So we actually went down there. We spent it was like 2.5 hours down in the Manamet Point stage
so you
point
were
area.
already there.
So it was a beautiful day, flat, calm. We spent 2.5 hours in and around the rocks, went down, it was like the Cape Cod Ave area, and just really ran the coastline, looked for any sort of signs, any indication. Generally, if you get a shark that eats a seal, it doesn't eat the entire seal.
Oh, yeah.
So the birds are usually picking away at it. We weren't able to find anything. And, there's been, ocean sunfish, basking sharks in that area that, people see a fin and sometimes can, it's a shark. It is a shark, but so we went down earlier that day and investigated, didn't find anything, and come to find out this happens later that day. But, it's funny, I don't think anybody in this town would think of that happening, but there's quite a bit of history in Cape Cod Bay.
Duxbury was having sightings.
Right.
And,
Yeah, there was a confirmed sighting in Duxbury a couple weeks before, so they're not staying in one town or the other.
It's because of the seals. We have to be aware of this now because the seals are here. Ever go to California? San Francisco. Oh my God, they're all over the pier. And you can hear them for miles. There are so many, and they just took the whole thing over. Yeah.
Well, so what we're seeing now is the gray seal population, which is it's absolutely exploded in Chatham. They went from hundreds to I think the latest counts in the tens of thousands.
Really?
In their protected species.
The gray ones.
Gray seals used to live in this. I mean, they've historically lived in this area, but they were hunted till almost extinction.
Yes.
During colonial times, and they've really made their way back. And it's just the population is exploding, and that's why a lot of people believe that the white sharks. I mean, Chatham is a perfect example where that population's exploding, and I think in this last year they've had 40 confirmed different animals off of Chatham alone. So if they're seeing 4, you can only imagine what 40, and sort of identifying 40 different animals. There's got to be plenty more than that. So
that's crazy. Wow. Well, you have add that to your list. What the things you will have to do and be aware of.
Well, and there's a lot that we have to take from that. That's an incident that could have easily been fatal.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple weeks later, I believe in Australia, there was a gentleman attacked by a great white, and he didn't live.
Yeah.
He bled out on the beach. So, that was one thing for me after the fact. You start to think, what if? What if that was a recovery mission for us? And really, what I have to do is start to think, what if, and how would we deal with that?
You're going to have to do drills for it.
Right. A lot of, we had to sort of look at our medical equipment and the possibility of adding tourniquets, which, for years, in the 70s and early 80s, they used to be widely used. The medical field sort of got away from using them, but now with improvised explosive devices, a lot of your armed forces are using them again because it's loss of limbs.
It can't hurt.
Right.
You have to have it. Right. And as a town meeting member, I'll give you a dozen. Now, we have a photo of this, but Nate.
Yes.
Let's talk about illegal dumping. And this is a thing that really breaks my heart. Every once in a while we have the little lady on, and have you met her?
No, I haven't, no.
No, they do great work with the purple bags all over town. The littering is terrible, but you talk about illegal dumping and the protection of conservation properties, Nate.
Yeah, sure. So I'm sure as a lot of people that live in town know, there's many places you walk through the woods and there's just going to be a pile of stuff. You know, and it's unfortunate. It looks awful.
Yeah.
It's horrendous for, you know, the environment as a whole, the animals, the vegetation around. So it is something that as soon as I started this job, Dave Gould said this is something that we need to start addressing.
Yeah.
So that picture that I brought.
Can we have that photo, Ken?
All right. Yep. So I mean, when it comes up, so it's just going to be one of the instances of dumping that's going on around town.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. So that's in South Plymouth, just over the, just right by Wareham.
Is that a road beside there?
Yeah, so that's a dirt road. It's kind of more of a cart path now. Unfortunately, GPSs will still direct people down there if they're trying to essentially get from the Shangri-La development in Wareham towards like Bournehurst, down towards the Cape.
This is near Paul Hapgood's.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I spoke with Mr. Hapgood a few times. So that's down by White Island.
Okay.
So I mean, as you can see when you look at that, literally everything is being dumped. You have household trash. There's a chair right there, a baby stroller, boxes. On the right, you can see piles of leaves, organic waste. So there's everything. Unfortunately, in one of these bags, when we first got called to come look at it, I must have pulled out maybe 6 or 8 syringes from one of the bags. So when it comes to something like that, and it's a public health issue, it's something that we get down to right away, and at least remove those syringes.
Oh dear.
So especially, and I know that's an area that's pretty popular with a lot of the residents around that will walk through that area.
Yes.
On one half of the road, it's state property. On the other half, it's town property, and there's some private property kind of scattered in there. But what we started doing is we're working with the police department. We're working with Department of Environmental Protection with the state. They have an enforcement division.
Good.
To basically start catching some of the people that are dumping out there.
I hope so.
Yeah, there's an ongoing investigation right now where
how can
that we're working
people
with the
help?
police.
How can
The only thing I can say is just if you see something to report it to either call the police or call our department right at town hall. Write down any information that you have if you see. So I know a lot of people will see cars go by, you know, get any information you can. The license plate goes a long way, make them all the car, the person, what they were dumping, and then we can kind of start to build a case against whoever's dumping. I mean, the fines get pretty big for it. They can exceed, you know, $3,000, and they should be told to remove everything. And so
but I'll tell you, those are good people that live down there. You say this is close to Wareham. There is a hotel there that is for the homeless or something over there near there. So the syringes and all of that.
I mean, when we were looking a little bit closer at the syringes, you know, they didn't seem to be drug related, just based on the size of the syringe itself.
Oh, from a medical facility?
Well, I've found medical waste in the past. I've found like phlebotomy syringes before. So I mean,
diabetic?
Yeah, they could be insulin syringes for sure, based on their size.
Wow.
You know, so a lot of that time. So, you know, being that this is the stuff that's kind of getting dumped, we recommend not to confront the people that are doing it. You don't want to put yourself in a situation that can get a little bit hairy.
Paul has.
Well, he's kind of like the mayor down there. So, but I mean, that whole community down there has been integral in helping get the people that have been dumping there. So, but that's just one spot that's going on in town. It happens all over the place. We are, you know, starting to work closer with the police department, get these investigations rolling, gathering more evidence against people. So, but that is something that's just going to be ongoing. It's an uphill battle, but people that are familiar with Cooks Pond Road by PCIS,
Yeah.
I mean, that's an area that has been cleaned up. You know, it was awful when I was in high school. We used to run down there, TVs and couches and the like. But it's been cleaned up. It's been gated and it's kind of been isolated. And it's nice down there now. So,
You know what
takes time,
drives
but we
me
can get there.
crazy is people put furniture, couches out on their property and say free.
Sure.
I hate that. You know, who's going to take that? You know, get your damn furniture and bring it to the dump. The transfer station.
Right.
Well, I wish you luck with that because
Sure.
you've
Thank
got
you.
to catch them.
Yep, we'll go.
Now, the T-Wharf reconstruction, now this is very exciting.
This is, yes.
How's that project going?
Well, so this is a project that's been, even going back to the time when I was there as a Harbormaster assistant in 1999, they were having ongoing issues.
Right.
First, it was sort of the decking, and then what ended up happening, Powder Point Bridge had a fire, and they used a lot of the reclaimed timber to redeck or go over the existing T-Wharf that was, the decking had sort of failed and rotted.
boy.
So sort of a Band-Aid upon a Band-Aid upon a Band-Aid. Fast forward to now, part of the T-Wharf has been condemned, basically the T. We were able to save the main approach by, we ended up putting down plywood just to add a little structural integrity to the decking and make sure nobody would, fall through or trip over anything.
Sure.
So we were able to do that to get us through the last 3 years. And finally, we have funding for this project.
Yay, yay.
Yep. So what we ended up doing, we were in the process of applying to the Seaport Bond Council. And when we were going to do that application, instead of doing the entire project at once, they wanted us to phase the project because they have a certain amount of money each year, and they like
Of
to spread it
course.
out amongst all the communities in the state. So the price tag for the total project was something they wouldn't be able to do, and we were able to break it down.
Now, did David secure that money or your department?
Actually, Terry Murray
Terry.
put it in the state budget, and that's how this
Who
phase one.
approached Terry?
I think we were working through her office to
Excellent.
get to the Seaport Bond Council and make sure that it was heard.
That's fabulous.
She
Thank
sort
you,
of
Terry.
she sort of beat them to that. So we're grateful for that and her efforts. But phase one, which will actually be happening this winter into next spring, is really to tear down the T-Wharf that exists.
Wow.
They're going to remove it entirely, and then they're going to begin the construction of the new pier.
Okay.
It's called the T-Wharf because it's in sort of a T configuration.
Can we see that photo? There
So
it is.
the photo that you have here, this is of the new pier. So I don't think we're going to be able to continue to call it the T-Wharf. We're going to have to
know.
come up with a new name for it because it is a
The
bit...
hockey stick.
The hockey stick. So this pier and the image you're looking at, sort of at the top is Towne Wharf. You have woods
Yep.
and the parking that sort of surrounds woods.
Right.
And this new pier will actually come off the Towne Wharf, which will
Okay.
be just past woods as you're traveling down the pier.
Yep.
It'll actually come off, and then the length that sort of travels to the north from there, if you can visualize this, the T on the T-Wharf that exists now, that follows the same contours as that.
Okay.
So a little different configuration, but we ended up with the same linear dock
What's
face.
the footage, Chad?
I believe the front face, so the east face of that is, the T was 300 feet, so that might be a little longer at about 320.
Yeah.
And the nice part about it is where there's a wider sort of approach to it,
oh, good.
which will be used
I
for
like
loading
that.
and unloading.
Yep.
It'll keep things from getting congested. So this project, we're hoping to go out to bid fairly soon. Right now, I'm working.
Thank you, Kenny.
Working with the consultant company to really get the details done. So where do you
Okay.
want the cleats? Where do you want the electrical boxes? It's really the small details now before it goes out to bid. We're hoping to have a contractor in January, and we hope they start shortly thereafter, so in January, February, March. And this project has a 10-month build time, so if they stay with that, we have one summer season that
You can't
I'm going to have to
avoid
deal with it.
Yeah.
The lobstermen, all the recreational boaters, it's going to be tough. We're trying to figure out, how to move the float systems we have to support the same amount of tenders and dinghies, and really, keep from, impacting what we do down there. But
it has to be done.
Right, and I think everybody understands that. I've been dealing with the lobstermen and the commercial fishermen. There's some boats that we've had to say, we don't have any space for you, you're going to have to find other dockage until the project's done. Few of the boats that are based out of Plymouth, we were able to arrange to keep them here by
good.
utilizing either the Towne wharf or moorings in the harbor.
Good.
So we're really trying to take care of the fishermen in town and hopefully get through this build process in 10 months with no hiccups, hopefully, and deal with it for the one summer season.
What kind of wood is used?
So the pier, similar to Towne Wharf, it's going to be a concrete topped pier. The benefit of that is durability. You're able to work or weld on the pier, whereas the wooden piers you can't do that.
Good thought.
So it's the concrete decking, there's some concrete cross members, but then for the pilings they use what's called a greenheart piling. It's a special rainforest type wood that's very resilient.
Very resilient.
They used to use the old creosote
Yes.
pilings, and those worked well, as they would last many years.
Oils
Exactly.
and toxins.
Yep. So this is sort of the next best thing
Very good.
to that, and the life expectancy. Hopefully we get another 100 years. The Towne Wharf, we in sort of looking at all the piers and doing surveys of them. We had a survey done of the Towne Wharf, which is about 50 to 60 years old, and that survey came back really great. So we're hoping that one will take us through.
Excellent. I mean, we've talked about it for years, and finally, Terry secured that money, and we're going to get our wharf. And we'll go through a little bit of something, but that's okay.
Yeah, and so this is phase one. Phase two is the dredging component, so the maintenance dredging. There's a huge need for maintenance dredging around the piers, and just recently we've had these moon tides, and I've gotten the chance to walk around at these extreme lows, and there's really not much water, in a lot of spots where we'd like to have
I'm glad
it.
you're dredging, because boats will be able to navigate better, and the water will be able to flow better.
Yeah, dredging to fully utilize this pier. The dredging needs to be done.
Yeah.
That will open up the space inside for boats to get protected from like a southeast storm. So that's absolutely needed. And then phase three, there's actually another pier that's going to be built coming out of the old town boat ramp, which is just to the north of Lobster Hut.
Yes, that's never used anymore.
Yeah,
hardly.
that's fallen into disrepair.
Yeah.
The parking lot, it really doesn't support launching a boat because there's no room to turn around. So
when we first moved here, people used it.
Sure. Yep.
But that was 40 years ago.
Yeah. And then the state boat ramp has sort of
Right.
taken that. It's a much larger, better built boat ramp.
I remember when the water came up to McGrath's, and then they built the pier. They built the area.
Oh,
out.
the boat ramp lot.
Yeah.
And
And but if you went to McGrath's, do you remember? Are you old enough to
I remember McGrath's.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I remember being a kid going fishing with my dad, and we would park in the dirt lot at the time,
Yeah.
McGrath's, and you'd
Oh,
walk you'd walk through all the tractor trailers.
Yeah.
There was a little alley you could walk through and pop out near the gas station across from the
Yeah.
pier, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
It was totally different. I mean, the town is, we don't want it to get too out of control here. But let's talk about poaching of eels and herring. Now, who is poaching eels and herring? Why would anybody want an eel?
I'll start with the
eels.
eels. So eels, glass eels, which are sort of the less than 4-inch, they're actually translucent at that point, and that's why they're called glass eels. People eat them, and they're a delicacy. And Maine has an actual commercial industry where
Really?
there's actually permits available for people to harvest glass eels. In 2012, the prices were up to $2,000 a pound. So whenever you have something that is, you're able to make $2,000 a pound on, Maine is not just good enough. So what happens is these guys will spread out to surrounding states, and they'll find areas to try and catch more glass eels, and then they'll actually take them up to Maine, sell them to a guy that is, actually has a permit, and he can then turn around and sell them to a dealer.
It's illegal here, right?
It's illegal, yeah. So you're not allowed to possess anything under 4 inches, an eel. These guys are definitely looking. The glass eels probably average are maybe 2 to 3 inches.
Are these saltwater eels?
They actually come from the ocean, and they're trying to go, just like herring, they're trying to get to the ponds to...
Do you know I have them? We have a brook in the backyard, and it goes from Fresh Pond, and David is trying to open that all up. We have eels in there.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
gigantic.
Yeah. And those started out as glass eels coming from the ocean. They're very tough to see. I mean, you could be looking into the water and
You see ripples, you see this thing, and then we have scads of turtles. But and it's like, oh, eels. It's
Right.
not one of my favorites.
yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I think we have a photo. Oh, he's out here.
I wanted to ask a question while I get the photo,
Yeah,
if I might, of Chad.
go ahead.
Is the poaching of eels become a problem in Plymouth, and what are we doing to stop it?
So it has, and they're very careful about going unnoticed. What they'll do is they'll set up what's called a fyke net, and basically it's a net that'll extend across the river, and there's a central collection point. And basically the eels get caught in the net, and they end up into this, it's like a hopper of sorts where they'll collect, and that's how they get them out. For years, I'm sure, they've been doing this. I've actually had people come to me and show me pictures of these fyke nets set up, and it's like, well, we thought it was, a research project, or we thought the town was doing it.
I wouldn't think
And
that.
it's not us.
Kenny, can you put that on, please? There it is. So this is what that looks like?
So this isn't for glass eels. This is an eel trap, which you'd be trying to get the larger eels. So basically, this is a very crude trap. It's a couple of 5-gallon buckets affixed together, and what they do is they'll put a hole in either end, which allows the eel to go in, and it's very similar to a lobster trap. The eel will go in, but because of the tapered nature of the hole, they can't get back out.
Oh.
So the idea behind this, it's a dark space. That's where the eels like to go. They'll go into the bucket, and the people that are looking for these larger eels are probably going to end up using them for bait. Stripers, bluefish.
How many can fit in there?
That I don't know.
Yeah,
That
I'm not
doesn't
sure
look
about
like that would hold. Of
No,
course.
it's probably enough
more than you think.
probably enough to get a night of fishing for stripers or something.
So have you caught any? Thank you, Ken. Have you caught anybody doing this?
I personally haven't. I'm not sure prior to when I started, but this is one of those topics that the Harbormaster and I kind of work pretty closely together doing. Same with the environmental police. There'll be nights that you know, the tide looks right, that we'll work an overnight shift in areas that we feel like might have some activity. So where that trap picture that just came out of is in an area of the, I think that was Eel River.
Right.
Underneath an overpass, a road overpass, like Chad was
sure.
saying, it's dark.
Yeah.
The water in that area is relatively calm. The only thing that tipped us off to seeing that trap was we saw the rope coming out of the water attaching to the tree, so it didn't take off. So, I mean, we haven't caught anybody yet, but part of the battle about doing that is having people know that we're out looking. And it is an issue all up and down the coast of the state.
This is a good start, Nate and Chad, because we go to a lot of towns and this show is seen. So you're out on the lookout for these poachers.
Yeah, generally this is going to be like April, the month of April. When you get those really big moon tides, that's what they're looking for, because that's when the eels will actually run. We usually find the gear. And a lot of times they'll use this sort of set the net and leave, because the less time that they're physically there, less time it is for them to get caught. So they're not going to sit there with a dip net and fill their bucket. They basically set these nets up, they'll leave them for a few hours, they'll come back, take the catch, so it's really a quick
hit and run.
Exactly. And you know, they'll be close by, and they'll be checking to see if anybody's looking, and
Sipping margaritas in a hotel somewhere and then running back out to check.
they're pretty clever. One tip off for us a few years ago was you'd start seeing trucks with Maine plates, New Hampshire plates, but now what generally happens is there's some sort of connection back to Maine, so they're able to legally sell them. You know, they have some commercially licensed guy in Maine that will buy the eels from them for probably, you know, he'll probably make a profit off it as well. He'll pay him half of what he's getting for him and make some money as well, because he's taking a risk as well, you know, buying the eels illegally. But the price really dictates, I think, you know, in 2012 at $2,000 per pound, people will risk getting caught.
I can't believe that's crazy.
It is, and in 2014, it's been like $400 to $600 a pound. So
what happened?
Well, I don't know. The demand, I guess, isn't there.
Yeah.
It's just the fluctuation in cost. The one thing Maine did also, there was a TV show that sort of showed the ins and outs of the Maine fishery, and everything used to be cash. The dealers would actually have these massive wads of cash, and they would just pay him cash for the eels. So there was no traceability in that. No. Now I guess they've gone to like not a credit card, but a swipe card. So all the transactions are traced. They're followed up by the state. They know who's selling how many eels, and they're able to keep track of that a lot better. So I think they've made some changes up there, which have helped.
Good.
Massachusetts, New Hampshire.
Did that,
So I would say between the price, us being out there, David and I, we put an article in the O'Colony. We wanted to make it very aware that we were going to, be out there checking, but we also wanted the general public to understand if they see a net across Towne Brook or any of these other streams or rivers, it's not the town. We wanted them to know what to look for, because a lot of that really relies on reports from people. We can't be everywhere, but if the calls start coming in, there's a lot of people that'll take their morning walks or take the dogs out and be walking these areas that sometimes are remote and we won't be able to get to. But by getting that report and following up, we can help that.
I'm so glad you got that information out. I wasn't aware at all.
This was probably 2 years. We put out a pretty big press release, and we haven't found any gear. This last season that came up, it was pretty slow. The year before that, we found a couple of really big nets that somebody took a long time to craft and make. They had everything was black, so it would blend right in.
Wow.
They went to great lengths to really conceal the netting. So Seem to be very technical people doing this. They know what they're doing.
They knew what they were doing.
And, you know, we're just lucky to find the gear. We confiscate the gear and at least take it out of the system.
And the same thing for the herring. They were poaching the herring. Yeah.
Yeah, yep, same thing. Those fyke nets, you know, the herring can get trapped in them as well. Like we were saying before, I mean, yeah, you can catch a herring and eat it, but for the most part, they'll catch the herring, they'll live line it, and that's what they're going to get their bigger fish from. And with that moratorium, similar to the eels where it's illegal to possess them, that goes so far as to us going around to some of the ponds, you know, Jenny Pond, and talking to fishermen that are at that pond, because just the simple act of having that line in the water, if you catch a herring and it's on the line, well, you're in possession of that herring and that's illegal.
Am I seeing this right? Is it really almost 9 o'clock? Oh my, we haven't even gotten halfway through this. Oh my goodness. You have to come back.
That's
Go
fine.
through
Yeah,
this
we'll come back.
torture again.
No problem.
Oh my goodness. We didn't talk about enforcement, hunting and fishing. I am so upset. It's like 5 minutes.
Do we have time to
No.
maybe talk about the new shellfish area that's open?
Oh, quickly. No, we don't. I don't know. It's like, what? Talk under it. Go ahead, go.
Okay, so one of the things that the town has been able to accomplish at the end of October, you can see the image up here, we were able to reopen the inside, the harbor side of Plymouth Beach
Yes.
to shell fishing.
Right.
This is basically all of the town's efforts, including stormwater improvements, the wastewater facility, statewide no discharge area. Boats used to be able to dump their treated sewerage right in the harbor.
Oh, I know, and that's how horrid.
So Plymouth, Kingston, Duxbury did a no discharge area, and at this point,
Thank you, Kenny.
the state has caught on, and all of state waters are no discharge area. So you can't dump anything treated, not treated, and part of that is the pump out boat program. So we administer the pump out boat, which pumps all the.
Here we go.
So
I cannot believe this. I apologize to both of you.
Well, we gave you a big list.
No, my God.
Thank you.
I thank you
Thank you.
so much. You're adorable. Next week, the chair of the county commissioner is going to be on. That should be very interesting, eh? Tune in. I'll be here. Thank you for watching Talk of the Town, and I'm sorry this hour went by so fast. We could have had another hour.
We'll come back.
Thank you. See you in 7.